I never thought my son's cookie sharing would lead to a heartbreaking encounter with the CEO. I will never forget that day. The sun hung low, casting long shadows on the pavement, and a thick tension filled the air. It was just an ordinary Tuesday, or so I thought. My little Lucas, always eager to share his treats, had baked cookies with the neighbor. Chocolate chip, gooey and warm. Smelling those sweet aromas wafting through the kitchen had been a source of pure joy for both of us. But that excitement shattered the moment he decided to venture beyond our small neighborhood. "Mom, can I take some cookies to school?" His eyes sparkled with innocence. I nodded, my heart swelling with pride. I never expected that simple act would spiral into chaos. At school, the sweet treats caused a ripple effect. A friend shared a cookie with another friend, and soon it was a wildfire of sugary frenzy. Little did I know, the cookies would end up in the hands of someone far more powerful, the CEO of the largest tech company in town, whose daughter was in Lucas' class. I remembered my husband's words, warning me about the CEO's strict rules regarding their public persona. "They're all about perfection," he said, eyeing me with concern. The thought sat heavy, gnawing at me. But my little boy was blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath that simple cookie exchange. Days passed, but the cookie incident became the talk of the school. Children whispered in the hallways, their voices dripping with awe. "Did you hear? Lucas cookies made it to the CEO's daughter." Curiosity buzzed like a swarm of bees, and I couldn't help but feel proud. My son was a hit. Then came the unexpected twist. I found out that the CEO himself would be visiting the school. A strange knot tightened in my chest. What would he think? What would he say? Before I could process it, the day arrived. The atmosphere crackled with excitement as students shuffled into the auditorium. I could see the children bouncing on their feet, waiting, anticipating. My breath quickened. The CEO strode in, sharp suit tailored to perfection, eyes glinting with authority. But then I noticed something unusual. Tension in the air thickened. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as I caught sight of Lucas' small frame, timid and anxious. It was then a cold wave of realization hit me. Why was I scared for my boy? It was just cookies after all. But weren't they? The glances exchanged, whispers behind hands. The sudden, heavy silence fell when the CEO locked eyes with my son. My heart thudded painfully against my chest. What would happen next? Would he unleash an outburst of anger? Would he make my child feel small, insignificant? The CEO approached, towering and intimidating. I could see Lucas trembling, a tiny figure against this giant of a man. My hands clenched tightly, nails digging into my palms. I felt a mix of pride and terror. Just as he reached Lucas, the room held its breath. I waited, heart pounding. What would he say? What would he do? And then, everything stopped. The air thick with suspense. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silence stretched on, a taut line ready to snap. I could feel the eyes of everyone in that auditorium bore into my son, their expectation palpable. The CEO bent slightly, his steely gaze softening as he examined Lucas' nervous expression. "Hey there, buddy," he began, the rough edges of his corporate demeanor melting slightly. "I heard you made these cookies." A tense breath escaped my lips. My heart soared and sank at the same time. Those cookies were, after all, a small piece of magic that my child had crafted, but had they come carrying a burden instead? "Yes, sir," Lucas stammered, clutching the lunchbox as if it were a lifeline. Undeterred, the CEO straightened back up, his imposing figure dominating the space, and I couldn't help but notice the way his sharp facade had, however briefly, cracked. They were delicious. Thank you for sharing. A wave of surprise washed over me, quickly followed by a deep sense of relief. I caught a glimpse of my son's smile, a timid light sparking behind those wide, round eyes. For a brief moment, connection bridged the gap between childhood innocence and a man who built empires. As the CEO diverted his attention to the rest of the crowd, I felt my heart lighten. Perhaps this would usher in a new, uncharted chapter for Yusin, unexpected ally, a change in the course of my son's school journey. But then the murmurings began again. Gossip coiled like smoke around us, whispers of wealthy parents trying to curry favor. Little hiccups of judgment clouded the moment's sweetness. The weeks following that encounter were filled with complexity. Lucas, buoyed by his newfound fame, had become shyly confident. He started to make friends he had only watched from afar. But with every friend gained, doubts began to trickle into my mind. Was this attention good for him, or would the weight of expectations crush the pure, joyful essence of who he was? One afternoon, while I sat at the kitchen table scrolling through paperwork, a sudden clatter interrupted my thoughts. I looked up, startled, to find Lucas standing frozen just inside the doorframe. Tears pooled in his eyes, and my heart lurched at the sight. What happened? I rushed over to him, kneeling to meet his gaze. They said I'm only popular because of the cookies, he whispered, barely above a whisper, his voice broken and shakily caught in defeat. They said it wasn't me, just those cookies. The words tumbled out like stones, heavy and painful, dragging him down. I reached out to embrace him. His small frame collapsed against me, warm and vulnerable, and in that space, my heart broke a little more. "Oh, baby, it's not true," I murmured, stroking his hair. "You're amazing just the way you are." The cookies were just a catalyst. But as I tried to reassure him, a pang of doubt lodged itself deep in my chest. Was I prepared for this both of us were now facing? As the days dragged on, Lucas grew quieter. I caught glimpses of shunning and cruelty from the children who had once rallied around his cookie fame. During school functions, instead of celebrating with the others, he would linger on the edges, a spectator in his own life. The once vivacious boy full of light began to dim, overshadowed by the burden of half-hearted remarks and envy. Then there was the moment I dreaded most, a school meeting with the PTA regarding the uproar caused by the CEO's visit. The air felt heavy with tension, an undercurrent of judgment beneath each syllable spoken. As I sat in that stark classroom surrounded by condescending whispers and veiled references, I realized I was merely a pawn in a game I never wished to play. A woman, impeccably dressed and sporting an air of charm, sat at the head of the table. "I think we need to discuss the influence this incident has had on our school environment." Her eyes tracked across the room, diving straight into me with indignation. "It's not just about cookies. It's about the perception of favor and entitlement that's now surrounded this child." I felt the room close in around me, an echo of my deepest fears surfacing as the words reverberated off the sterile walls. This wasn't just about a cookie anymore. It had turned into something much darker, much uglier. "Lucas can't help who his family is," I found myself defending desperately. "He just wanted to share something sweet." But as my voice faltered, they exchanged nods, their minds made up. I could feel the conviction in their expressions as a stark reminder that for every small moment of kindness, there were 100 moments of discontent waiting to snuff it out. And then, just as I thought the meeting would conclude and we'd somehow made it through, the woman dropped a bombshell that rocked me to my core. "Perhaps in the future, it's best he focuses on more practical subjects, rather than creative snacks that could put him in the headlines." I gasped, the words battering my heart like hundreds of tiny hammers. A weight settled deep within my chest, an impending darkness fueling an unbearable emotion, one I struggled to face. That night, after tucking Lucas into bed, I sat alone in the dim light of the kitchen, grappling with my own thoughts and feelings that tangled around my heart. It might have begun with cookies, but it had swiftly spiraled into something beyond our control, something that threatened our very sense of identity. Just when I thought the weight of the world had completely rendered me helpless, the bright luminescence of my phone flickered against the darkness. A text from an unknown number appeared, a simple line that sent a wave of icy dread crashing over me. "I know what you've done. You should be careful. This isn't over." I felt the air leave my lungs, the implications of those words hanging heavily in the silence of the night. A chill crept through the night as I held my phone like a fragile relic, the words of that short message reverberating through my mind. I set it down on the table, yet it felt as if it still clung to my fingers, an unwanted intruder reminding me of shadows I was not ready to confront. The night wrapped around our home, isolating me further as anxiety began to claw at my insides. pulling me down into a spiral of worry. Sleep eluded me entirely. I kept replaying the day's incidents, each condescending remark, each murmur of judgment. My heart twisted painfully as I thought of Lucas, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around him, under the weight of expectations that felt so foreign yet all too real. I was determined not to let this consume him, but the path forward felt clouded by impending doom. In the morning, the sun filtered through the curtains, casting gentle rays across our small kitchen. The glow seemed to tease at hope, yet it offered little comfort. I found Lucas still curled under the covers, his bright red hair tousled and neglected, akin to his spirit. He stirred only when I gently nudged him awake. A quiet reluctance etched across his face that mirrored my own anxious heart. "Fresh start today, buddy," I encouraged, forcing a smile. "How about we bake a new batch of cookies together after school? Something special for later." His eyes lit for a flicker of a moment before the weight of reality dulled it. What if they don't like them? What if he faltered, his voice cracking under the strain? What if it just makes things worse? I knelt beside him, heart trembling as I fought the urge to dissolve into tears. "You know, sometimes people don't see the beauty in what's shared. But what matters is that you share it from your heart," I reassured, brushing my fingers against his cheek. "Do it for you, not them." Throughout the day, I tried to distract myself with errands and mundane tasks, but thoughts of that message skirted at the edges of my mind like a haunting specter. I found myself clenching and unclenching my hands, the very act of futile attempt to rid myself of the underlying fear that something dark was bound to unravel. After school, Lucas and I gathered the ingredients, laughter spilling freely as we moved about the kitchen. We made a playful mess, flour clouds floating through the air while sweet scents emerged from the oven. For a brief moment, I felt the warmth of connection wrap around us like a blanket, a cherished memory suspended in time. Yet, as the cookies cooled, my thoughts began to spiral back to the unknown text and the dark implications that gnawed at our quiet reprieve. Suddenly, the blare of the doorbell shattered the moment's tranquility. My heart leaped into my throat. I exchanged a wary glance with Lucas before heading toward the door. To my shock, standing there was a middle-aged woman I instantly recognized from the PDA. Her confident stance and perfectly polished demeanor felt threatening. "Can I come in?" she asked, her tone deceptively airy, barely masking the leer beneath her smile. Sure," I fumbled, stepping aside. As she stepped into my home, the air grew tense, the comfort of our afternoon suddenly feeling foreign. I motioned towards the kitchen. "We were just baking those cookies," she interrupted, waving a dismissive hand as she scanned my humble home. "You see, dear, it's not just about the cookies anymore. We need to talk about what Lucas represents now, a shift in power dynamics. If you will. My heartbeat quickened. "What do you mean?" I uttered, already bracing for an onslaught of veiled accusations. "Your son has caught the attention of influential people, but not all attention is good. Some may wish to take advantage of that, especially if they feel threatened." Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and every word dripped with a weighty caution. "I thought you should know." The air thickened with unspoken threats, and all I could do was nod, swallowing hard against the bitterness that threatened to spill from my lips. I wanted to scream at her, question her intentions, shove her out the door, but instead, I faltered, feeling drained of strength. "Thank you for the warning," I managed, barely above a whisper. "And of course, you wouldn't want to cause any trouble for Lucas. It would be a shame for any misunderstandings to arise, especially with the upcoming showcase at school," she added, the layered implications of her words wrapping tighter around me like a noose. As she finally departed, a drumming sense of foreboding churned within me. What was meant to be a light-hearted afternoon had morphed into an ominous landscape where my son's joy was increasingly painted with shades of dread. Lucas emerged from our sanctuary, munching on a cookie. His face looked carefree, blissfully unaware of the warning that had been laid before us like a trap. But I stood frozen in thought, watching him with a fusion of love and terror. I had promised to protect him, but knew now that unseen shadows were murking the air ahead, dragging me into a web of a situation I never saw ourselves embroiled in. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them for both our sakes. I just hoped it would be enough. But just as I was about to call Lucas into the living room, another text lit up my phone. I hesitated before glancing down. Don't think you can hide behind the cookies. The real game is just beginning. Panic surged through me again, and I felt the ground beneath me tremble as panic gripped my chest tight. Whatever was coming, we were not prepared. The following morning, with the echoes of the ominous message still fresh in my mind, I watched Lucas from a distance as he busily packed his school bag. His bright smile contrasted sharply with the turmoil fluttering in my chest, making it difficult to maintain my own facade of calm. I forced myself to breathe deeply, reminding myself that I had to be strong for him. As he picked up his cheerful backpack, a flash of memory shot through me how much joy it had brought him to pick those colors, the vibrant designs he had chosen. Outside, the sun gleamed brightly, promising warmth and a fresh start to the day. I wanted to believe it too, but every welcomed ray felt like it was being overshadowed by an impending storm. Hope you're ready for more baking experiments today. I attempted to keep my voice light as he joined me in the hallway, sliding his small hand into mine. Yeah, he chirped, his enthusiasm amplified by the prospect of sharing cookies with friends. Yet, in the way he squinted against the morning light, I caught a fleeting glimpse of his uncertainty. I knew I had to guide him, but I didn't know if my guidance would be enough against what loomed on the horizon. After dropping Lucas off at school, I drove through familiar streets, the neighborhood looking deceptively mundane compared to the whirlwind of emotions raging inside. I returned home feeling weighed down, staring out the window, as if expecting the shadows to materialize into something tangible. I picked up my phone again to delete that awful text, but the words pulsed at me as a morbid reminder. Before the anxiety could tether me into a deeper spiral, an unexpected vibrancy broke through my clouded thoughts. The sounds of laughter drifted from the neighbor's house. Caught off guard, I snagged my gaze on Mrs. Parker pouring lemonade as her children giggled through the open window behind her. The warmth of the scene spread through me. I yearned for that kind of simplicity, that kind of carefree joy. Compelled by a sudden burst of determination, I decided to visit her, hoping the interaction might lift the weight on my shoulders. Perhaps it was jealousy mingling with admiration, but I secretly wished for even a fragment of that bliss. I knocked gently, and the door swung open almost immediately. "Glad you stopped by?" she exclaimed with genuine enthusiasm, pulling me inside. I thought we could use a break from the heat. Lemonade is fresh. Sitting at her kitchen table, sipping the sweet and tangy drink, I felt a warmth wrap around me that I hadn't noticed in ages. As we chatted about school plans and summer vacations, I felt my worries slip away, if only just for a second. Then, as if fate had an ironic sense of humor, the doorbell rang again, cutting through the merriment. "Excuse me for just a moment," Mrs. Parker said, rising to answer the door. That I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the laughter still resonating around me. Yet, the moment stretched, and a weird uneasiness crept through me, pulling my attention to the doorway. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but a voice floated from the entrance, so deep and authoritative that it sent chills up my spine. "That is Mrs. Adams home?" The tone was smooth yet carried a weight I could sense, even from across the room. My heart raced. I hadn't heard that voice before, but it vibrated with an air of power, like someone who was accustomed to issuing commands and being obeyed. "Just a moment," Mrs. Parker replied, her chipper tone at odds with the sternness creeping into my chest. My instincts kicked in as I stood up, edging towards the doorway, curiosity transforming into concern. Through the gap of the open door, I made out a figure who stood tall, a dark suit framing a strong jawline, and sharp, piercing eyes. "Excuse me, can I help you?" Mrs. Parker asked, her tone shifting from welcoming to cautious. "I seek to understand the potential of young Lucas Adams as he prepares for the upcoming showcase. He has a particular talent," the man responded, his voice rich like honey yet chilling like ice. The world around me seemed to darken, turning down the colors of Mrs. Parker's bright kitchen. Recognition snapped through me like lightning. The echoes of the PTA woman's warning swirled through my head, coiling tighter. This wasn't merely about cookies. It was about my son's future, one I had fought to protect. "Sorry, but I don't think Mrs. Parker," began to reply, but I was already moving through the door without a second thought. "Excuse me," I said, cutting in, feeling the urgency in every syllable. "Who are you, and what do you want with my son?" The stranger turned toward me, the hint of a smile playing on his lips, but his eyes remained cold and calculating. "Just offering a friendly conversation regarding Lucas' potential," he said with a tone so rehearsed, it made my skin crawl that I felt a surge of hot panic rise, willing the venom of dread to melt away. This was not how things worked. This man was not part of our world, and he had no right encroaching upon our sanctuary. "Lucas is not interested," I shot back, the strength in my voice surprising even me. "And we're perfectly fine without your friendship." The flicker of surprise crossed his features before resolute determination settled back in. "Are you certain?" he mused, his tone growing darker, more pressing. "It would seem there are many people invested in seeing what he can achieve, and for those with ambition, the cookies are the least of what's at stake." A chilling realization clawed at my insides, threatening to unravel everything I had tried to build for Lucas. I forced myself to stand tall, not allowing fear to crush my resolve. "You don't know what you're talking about, and am asking you to leave." The silence that followed felt like an eternity, fraught with tension as the man studied me with calculating eyes. Then, as if a pact had been made without words, he took a cautious step back. "Very well. Just remember, the game is in motion, and it may be wise to consider the stakes involved." With an unsettling smile, he pivoted towards the doorway, leaving me shaken, heart racing in the wake of his departure. I glanced at Mrs. Parker, whose face mirrored my unease. She had seen the threat, had understood the gravity of the situation. I am sorry. I had no idea," she whispered, shaking her head in disbelief. "I can't let him get close," I murmured, the weight of this encounter settling heavily in my chest. Behind us, the afternoon sun dipped lower, and the shadows it cast morphed ominously around us. Those few fleeting moments replayed through my mind, the implications growing with every heartbeat. Whatever threads had been woven around Lucas were tightening, and we were caught in a web we never chose to enter. As I left Mrs. Parker's house, the gravity of my responsibility pressed down on me like a lead weight. I realized in that moment that the battle was no longer just about cookies. It was an unseen war that threatened Lucas' future, and I had to find a way to shield him before the game spiraled beyond our control. That a new text chimed on my phone, and as I looked down, my blood ran cold. "They've sent their emissary. The true game is about to begin." I gripped the phone tightly, my breath catching in my throat. Now, there was no turning back. The following days blurred together, each moment steeped in a mix of dread and determination. I found myself alternating between moments of hope, brief respites where I could be present with Lucas, and waves of anxiety that swallowed me whole, reminding me of the threats lurking just beyond our doorstep. Every smiling face I encountered seemed to carry with it the weight of unseen intentions. I busied myself in our kitchen, flinging flour and sugar into mixing bowls as if each ingredient might absorb a little of my tension. In these moments, I watched Lucas with pride, filling cookie sheets as his laughter echoed through the house. He was blissfully unaware of the tumult outside, scattered flour resembling innocence encased in chaos. Yet, around midnight, silence fell in our home like a sledgehammer striking stone. The images from that afternoon replayed in my head. How could I keep him safe? With each passing moment, the whispered warnings of the PDA woman echoed louder, drowning out the laughter with a sinister undertone. "Lucas," I called one night, kneeling to meet him at eye level as he helped me prepare the dough. "Do you remember the games we used to play with the flour?" His face lit up, and I felt a bittersweet pang. "We made a mess," he exclaimed, clapping his hands in delight. It was these small pieces of our lives, these simple joys, that I craved to protect. "But remember, cookies aren't just about the fun," I said, my tone becoming serious. "Sometimes people have other ideas about what they want from something so simple." He looked puzzled, eyes round and earnest. "Are the cookies too sweet?" I chuckled lightly, ruffling his hair despite the weight in my heart. "No, not that. I mean, people often want more than what you think they want. It's like hiding snacks when friends come over because you worry they might take too many." Lucas nodded, comprehending the overarching lesson without grasping the exact meaning behind my words. For now, it was enough. Yet, I knew the day would come when those metaphors would run out, and the harsh reality of our situation would inch its way into his world. Later, I squared my shoulders as I walked down the hallway after he had gone to bed. I had made it my mission to find out more about that man, one who claimed to have been sent from an unyielding game. I fired up my computer, desperate to uncover anything that might lead me closer to protecting my son. Research became both my refuge and obsession. Hours turned into days as I sifted through articles and reports, tangled in corporate lingo and hidden agendas. My heart pounded each time I encountered a mention of the showcase and those tapped to groom potential prodigies. I soon discovered that Lucas' talent was just a surface, a shiny veneer beneath which lay complicated, formidable rivalries and unspoken pacts for power. Just when I thought I had a handle on things, the phone rang, jolting me from my trance. It was Mrs. Parker. Her voice trembled with urgency. "You won't believe who I just ran into." "Who?" I replied, my heart racing at the sudden shift in her tone. "The man who came to our door. He's been shadowing the playground. He was talking to some of the other parents. It's like he's building a network." I don't think it's just about Lucas. Panic surged through me, summoning familiar fears. "What do you mean? Several children, not just Lucas. It seems he's aggressively looking to recruit talents for whatever this is. And his influence sits deep. He spoke with Gary from the next block, the one you thought you could trust. These all in. They want to create something big, and Lucas may just be a pawn in their plans." That I felt the ground shift beneath me. Her words painted a stark image of my vulnerability. "This can't be happening," I whispered more to myself than to her. "I have to find a way to stop this." "There might still be hope," Mrs. Parker replied, her tone turning resolute. "I noticed someone else talking to the man yesterday, a woman. She seemed different, hesitant even. If we can find out who she is, we might gain allies." I clung to her words, but uncertainty clung to me like an old coat that never fit quite right. "Let's meet tomorrow and share what we know." As I hung up, a flicker of tension unraveled, even as new worries loomed. I wouldn't let them take Lucas. The stakes were too high. That night, despite the heaviness of the conversation, I dreamt of cookies and laughter, togetherness woven in with the sweetness of homemade treats. But in the periphery, I saw the man in the sharp suit, his cold eyes watching. My heart raced as I understood that he wasn't just part of the shadows. He had infiltrated the very heart of our desires. In the morning, anxious energy thrummed in the air as I prepared to meet Mrs. Parker. The sun peered cautiously through the clouds, teasing another warm day. I felt strangely known, too exposed under its light. Then, the text buzzed through, cracking open my fragile resolve, and upon glancing down, my breath caught in my throat. It read, "Keep your son close. The new playmaker arrives tonight. Those who enter the game never truly leave." In that instant, everything felt precarious, a game where the rules were being rewritten while we stood oblivious. Staring at the screen, I realized we were on the brink of something inevitable, and I had to harness every ounce of strength within me to protect Lucas. The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering against the tabletop as panic seized me. The game was set to begin, and I had no idea what would come next, but I had to be ready. The weight of the day felt heavy on my chest as I moved through the motions of breakfast, the scent of syrup mixing with the bittersweet aroma of impending dread. Lucas was vibrant and full of life. Each smile and giggle pierced through my haze of fear, but with it came an ache, a warning nagging at the back of my mind. "Can we make more cookies today, Mom?" His eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as he pored over the last of the colorful sprinkles, eager to create masterpieces that would bring joy to his friends. In that moment, I couldn't deny him. They were just cookies, a child's delight spun from simple ingredients. But they represented far more than mere treats. They were a piece of our sanctuary, a defiance against the shadows lurking outside our home. "Of course, sweetheart," I managed, forcing a smile as I reached for the mixing bowl. "But let's make a special batch one for Mrs. Parker, too." His face lit with approval, and I felt a flicker of hope rise within me. Perhaps our small acts of kindness would fan the flames of resistance against the looming threat. As we slipped into our familiar rhythm of baking, laughter filled the kitchen, drowning out the fears whispering in the corners of my mind. Hours flew by, and soon enough, our cookie creation, colorful and imperfect, was ready for the world beyond our door. With a warm box in hand, Lucas and I made our way to Mrs. Parker's house, just a few blocks away. I could still picture the man in the sharp suit, the coldness in his gaze, but I clamped down on those intrusive thoughts. When we arrived, the sun dipped low in the sky, painting everything in golden hues. Mrs. Parker answered the door with a warm smile that instantly calmed my nerves. "I've been waiting," she said, beckoning us inside. We set the box of cookies on her kitchen counter and began to discuss the findings from our earlier conversations. Her eyes widened with every detail I shared about the man's web of influences, and a furious determination sparked within her. "I can't help but feel that there's something bigger at play," she said, biting her lip in thought. "He's not just looking for talents. It's all part of something that could impact so many lives. We're dealing with powers that have no qualms about treading over anything or Anunito get what they want." My gut twisted at the thought. I had been so consumed with signaling out the dangers surrounding Lucas that I hadn't truly comprehended the scale of this threat. "What can we do?" I asked, feeling hopelessness grasp my heart. "We have to be strategic, gather allies," Mrs. Parker suggested, her voice steady. "I feel like the woman I saw could be an important piece of this puzzle, but we need a plan to find her." Just then, a chorus of laughter erupted from Lucas and Mrs. Parker's children playing in the backyard. I caught the soft sunlight glinting off their joy, and for a moment, I drank in the blissful sound, allowing it to tentatively bridge the encroaching shadows. As we moved outside to join the children, the wholesome sight struck a chord deep within me. Lucas was unburdened, running and playing while the fears that gripped me seemed miles away. But a fleeting glance towards the street shattered the image when I saw him, the man in the sharp suit, casually leaning against a parked car, an unreadable expression gracing his face. Panic flooded my veins as I quickly turned back to the children, my throat tight. "Lucas, sweetheart, how about we play together?" He nodded enthusiastically, dashing towards me. But my mind spiraled. What if this was just the beginning of a much larger game? In that moment of distraction, something small yet profound happened. One of the neighborhood parents approached, a kind-hearted woman with a soft smile. "Nice cookies," she laughed, and Lucas beamed, proud of our baking efforts. "Would you like to join us for a few?" I suggested, surprising myself with the warmth in my voice, and she agreed, moving closer to share stories and laughter. That brief moment of camaraderie wrapped around me like a safety net. Within those fleeting exchanges, I understood that, even when darkness encroached, the light of human connection flickered fiercely. But our joy was cut short when Lucas suddenly burst forward, calling out to his new friends, utterly unaware of my frenzied heart. As I raced after him, I felt the man's piercing gaze still fixed upon us. "Lucas!" I shouted, heart racing as he sprinted toward the man, who was speaking now to the others at a distance. Lucas approached him with that innocent trust inherent in children, reaching out for a handshake, a greeting. "No!" I cried, panic electrifying my limbs. But before I could reach him, the man's smile was disarming, a strange contrast to the prickling fear wrapped around me like barbed wire. I watched helplessly as Lucas extended his small hand, and the man bent down to accept it. Their fingers touched, and time froze for what felt like an eternity. "Do you like cookies?" the man asked, his voice smooth, an unsettling charm lacing his words. An unsettling realization washed over me. I was losing control. I darted forward as fear clawed at my insides. "Lucas, come back." But before I could wrap him in my protective embrace, the man straightened, his eyes darkening momentarily as they landed back on me. It was only then that I noticed a flicker of recognition pass between them, a moment that felt like the configuration of a twisted game board shifting at my feet. As the ground beneath me trembled, I steadied my breath, an unyielding resolve pushing through the sheer panic. There was more at stake now than just cookies and laughter. I was standing at the precipice of something dangerously intricate. With every heartbeat, I understood that this was merely the beginning of a chaotic game, and Lucas was caught right in its center. The stakes had been riced. A rippling sense of dread settled over me, but within that fear, a fire ignited. I wouldn't let him slip away. And with that, as the sun dipped lower in the sky, I braced myself for the shadows that now crept dangerously closer, knowing that everything was about to change. The moment hung suspended in the air as I reached Lucas, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Lucas, come here," I pleaded, urgency lacing my voice. The man in the suit straightened, the charming smile still plastered on his face, but a flicker of something darker lingered in his gaze as he assessed me. "Just chatting with your son," he said smoothly, as if those innocuous words could dispel the tumult brewing inside me. But the moment's sweetness had rotted, and my instincts screamed for me to pull him away. "Let's go, honey," I said, crouching to meet Lucas' eyes, my hands shaking as I placed them gently on his shoulders. "Mommy needs you." He looked up, confusion marring his radiant expression. "But no buts. We have more cookies to decorate." My voice was firm, laced with an undertone of fear that sent a shudder through me. As I wrapped my arm around him possessively, I shot a defiant glare at the man, somehow channeling enough resolve to dismiss the unease creeping up my spine. The man simply smiled, a predator enjoying the thrill of the chase. "Don't forget, young man, that's just the beginning. I hope to see you again." His words echoed in my mind, saturating the air as I guided Lucas away, the laughter of the other children now superficial, the warmth of community quickly dwindling into a chilling awareness of the risks around us. Inside Mrs. Parker's house, I tried to shake off the weight of the encounter. Lucas was oblivious, racing to show off our cookie creations, but as I set the box down, the reality of the moment coiled tightly in my chest. "Are you all right?" Mrs. Parker's expression was tinged with concern as she caught a glimpse of my face that I nodded absently, forcing myself to breathe. "It's just that man. He's not just looking for talent. He's watching us. Should we report him?" she suggested, her brows knitting together, worry creasing her forehead. "No," I said sharply. "If we draw attention to ourselves, it could make things worse. We need to be strategic, just like you said." Through the afternoon, I fought to keep my fears at bay, engaging with the other parents while Lucas played with abandon. I found solace in the snippets of laughter and playful banter that circled around moments strong enough to create a temporary fortress against the storm brewing outside our walls. But the tranquility shattered by dusk when Lucas, exhausted from play, tugged on my hand. "Can we bake more cookies tomorrow? For the new neighbors?" he asked, his innocence lighting up my heart. "Of course," I replied, but my reply felt like a lie now, heavy with the complexities I was struggling to navigate. That evening, the weight of exhaustion settled on my shoulders as I tucked Lucas into bed, his little body curled up under the blanket. I kissed his forehead, savoring his warmth, wishing I could shield him from the darkness as I slid out of his room, my stomach in knots. But sleep eluded me, thoughts spiraling through my mind like wildfire. I paced through our tiny living room, staring out at the quiet street below. What if the man returned? What did he want with us? My thoughts spiraled toward the sound of rattling glass outside, the noise that made my heart race in its uncertainty. I caught a glimpse of movement across the street. My breath hitched as the man leaned against the same parked car where I had seen him before. A chill settled deep in my bones. This couldn't be a coincidence. Had he been watching us the entire time? As shadows deepened, I lost sight of him, fought against the panic clawing under my skin, but there was something nagging an urgent weight in the pit of my stomach. My fingers brushed over the phone on the table, but I hesitated, unsure of whom to call or what to say without raising alarms that could endanger Lucas further. Just then, a soft knock at the door snapped me from my spiral. My heart thumped wildly as I approached warily. "Who is it?" I called out, the tremor in my voice betraying my nerves. "It's me, Mrs. Parker." Relief flooded through me as I opened the door to find her standing there, her expression serious, almost grave. "I need to talk. To you it's important." I shifted aside, allowing her to enter, dread pooling in my gut. Whatever she had to say felt heavy, laced with the same urgency that churned inside me. Once we were seated, she took a deep breath before speaking. "I did some digging," she began, her voice low. "About the man you saw. He's not just some random figure, he's involved in a wider network, and they're looking for individuals with special talents. Just like Lucas. My world tilted, and I felt the weight of the truth crashing down like a tidal wave. "What do you mean? What kind of talents?" Mrs. Parker's gaze was steady, brimming with the anger that seemed to pulse through our community like a quiet whisper. "It's more than just traditional skills. They're interested in children with extraordinary abilities. They believe that he has something unique, something they can exploit." My blood ran cold as the implications sank in, crushing me under the weight of fear for my son. "No," I whispered, the words barely leaving my lips, each one tasting like ash. "They can't take him. We have to act quickly. This is dangerous, and the more time we let pass, the more at risk he becomes," she pressed, urgency cutting through the air. It was a sudden explosion of dread, the reality too unimaginable to grapple with. What do we do? I asked, my voice wavering, uncertain if I could protect him from this faceless threat. Before she could respond, a loud noise erupted outside, shattering glass mixing with panicked voices. I flew to the window, gasping in shock. The man in the sharp suit emerged from the shadows, flanked by others, their expressions masked in darkness as they moved towards our homes. A chill ran down my spine. They were coming. Mrs. Parker. My voice trembled as I turned back to face her, the urgency morphing into an electric panic. What do we do? Her eyes widened. Fear mirrored my own. We need to hide. Now. As we hurried towards the back of the house, adrenaline coursing through me, I realized that my life was no longer determined by the sweet simplicity of cookies and laughter. A storm loomed, and Lucas was the eye of the hurricane, vulnerable and exposed. And as the darkness enveloped us, I felt a surge of defiance ignite within me. I would not let them take him, not without a fight. But I knew the road ahead was fraught with shadows, and the depth of the conflict had only just begun. The air felt thick with tension as Mrs. Parker and I crept through the kitchen, keeping our steps silent against the creaky floorboards. Every shuddering breath echoed like a warning bell. I strained to hear any hint of chaos from outside, the shattered glass still crackling in my ears. Go to the back room, Mrs. Parker whispered, her voice urgent but steady. They'll keep watch. I nodded, my mind a whirlpool of fear and instinct. I had never imagined anything like this could touch our lives, nor could I understand what made Lucas a target. For all his quirks, he was an ordinary boy, just like the others, his laughter buoying our spirits during community events, his kindness shining through in every cookie he decorated. His gifts felt bright and innocent, just like him. Why would they want to exploit them? As I slipped into the small storage room at the back, my heart raced. I felt a rush of gratitude for Mrs. Parker, a woman who had become an unexpected guardian. Her soft-spoken words of comfort and strength had been my anchor amidst the tsunami of panic. Please be safe, Lucas, I murmured, stealing a glance at the door that separated us from external chaos. A moment later, I heard the distinct sound of 2 heavy boots trampling across the yard, a body shift against the fence. My breath caught in my throat, an electric pulse of fear ripping through me as I turned my thoughts to Lucas, nestled in the comfort of his bed, utterly unaware. Would they come for him next? I couldn't shake off the thought. Mrs. Parker appeared at the door, her face pale but determined. We need to be ready in case we have to move. She glanced over her shoulder. I can hear their voices, she said, her voice trembling slightly. They're talking about a package. Package, I echoed the word, dread pooling deeper within me. What did they mean? A sinister knot twisted in my gut as I envisioned them treating my son like some object of value, like a prized possession, a chilling contrast to the boy who meant the world to me. When she turned away, I followed her gaze to the window's edge, where the curtains swayed slightly. I peered out. 2 men stood near our front porch, their faces obscured by the darkness, but the intensity of their conversation slipped into my ears. We'll sweep the area first. And then, my heart raced again. But this time it wasn't just fear that propelled my feet across the floor, it was anger. I wouldn't let them do this. I wouldn't let them steal away everything I held dear. Mrs. Parker, I breathed, drawing her attention back to me. We can't just wait. There's got to be something we can do. She hesitated, weighing the risks. It's too dangerous to confront them directly, she finally said. But if we create a distraction, it might give us the chance to slip away. In the next few moments. We need to be clever, thoughtful, I urged. What if I could lure them away? Maybe you could get to Lucas. No, she interrupted, her voice firm, yet laced with fear. It's too risky. We need to stay together. I hated the feeling of helplessness clawing at me, the knowledge that I was beginning to fall apart under the pressure. But deep down, I felt a stirring resolve. I had to protect Lucas, and every heartbeat urged me to act. Just give me a moment, I insisted. I can draw their attention. The small room tightened around us as I amped up with adrenaline, an irrational plan bubbling to the surface. Before she could contest, I reached for a small shelf lined with old kitchen items, and I pulled down a metal bowl, its surface gleaming dully in the light. Are you crazy? Mrs. Parker hissed. You're going to get yourself killed. I shook my head but could hardly hear my own thoughts amidst my quickening pulse and the escalating tension outside. If I can make a loud noise just enough to divert them, we may have precious seconds to escape. It'll be quick, you swear. No, she whispered, panic flashing in her eyes, but the urgency to act, to shield Lucas, surged stronger than fear. I clamped the bowl against the wall, my heart pounding with the knowledge that I needed to trust my instinct, even if it led me towards chaos. Suddenly, a loud crash thundered from outside, followed by frantic shouting. "Search the perimeter," one of the men shouted, their voices cutting through the night. "We don't have time to waste. Go," I urged, turning the bowl firmly against the wall. A sharp clang resounded, echoing in the stillness like the letting of a wound. I felt breathless as I slipped back, eyes locked with Mrs. Parker's. Now, with a burst of energy, we darted out of the storage room toward the back door, adrenaline fueling every hurried step. I swore I could make out the shadowy figures repositioning themselves, their movements charged with intent to breach our haven. Just as we made it to the next hallway, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps racing along the front path, voices turning sharp with urgency. I knew they were onto us, Mom. A small voice cried out, "Mom." The chilling familiarity of Lucas' voice pierced my heart like an arrow, slicing through the torrents of fear. He was close, too close. Panic seized me, the stakes raising higher than I had ever imagined possible. My eyes met Mrs. Parker's. The understanding was instant. There was no time to spare, no choice but to move, that I could either confront the danger or fail to protect the one spark in my life that made it all worthwhile. With desperation clawing at me, I steered toward Lucas' room, ready to fight against the encroaching darkness, knowing that every moment counted, even as dread loomed over us like an impending storm, threatening to shatter everything in its wake. The door swung open with a creak that sounded like a plea for mercy. I rushed into Lucas's room, every muscle in my body poised and ready for confrontation, dread swirling in my stomach. The familiar scent of his toys and unmade bed filled the air, a stark contrast to the chaos brewing beyond our walls. "Lucas," I called out softly, my voice trembling despite my resolve. "Where are you?" "Mom." His voice quivered from beneath the beta's small, innocent sound cloaked in fear. I knelt down, coaxing him to emerge. His bright eyes, usually filled with wonder, clouded with confusion and terror, mirrored my own feelings. "Shoo," he hissed, his small hands gripping a corner of a blanket tightly, as though it could shield him from the world outside. "They're here." I glanced toward the window, the moonlight casting eerie shadows as branches danced against the light. The urgency in my heart thumped harder. We had no time to lose. "Listen to me, Lucas, sweetheart," I whispered urgently, hastening the words. "You need to trust me. We have to get out of here, right now. Can you do that?" He nodded, his eyes wide but resolute. I can be brave, that I in that moment. His determination became my lifeline, an echo of the brightest light I had ever known. Grabbing his hand, I pulled him close, heart racing as I glanced back at the door, expecting it to burst open at any moment. Just when I thought I would be overwhelmed by despair, a small glimmer of hope caught my eye. A soft glow flickered beneath the dresser, illuminating a hidden compartment that Lucas had made a secret fort not too long ago. "We can hide there. I can keep us safe." The husky confidence in his voice brought a brief smile to my lips. "Okay, buddy. We're going to need every ounce of bravery," I said, gently guiding him towards the fort, keeping my ears peeled for any signs of their presence. The trees creaked outside like ominous giants. But for once, it was a noise I welcomed. Nothing else seemed to penetrate my thoughts except for the pounding of my heart and the quiet breath of my son beside me. Just then, the voices from outside grew louder, a menacing chorus resonating through the walls. "Find her. She can't have gone far. Check the upstairs first." My breath hitched at the command. They were hunting for us like we were prey, and the idea made me physically ill. That I squeezed Lucas's hand, my pulse a frantic drumbeat. With a heavy heart, I watched the sun's sliver of light through the window fade behind the clouds, reflecting the darkness encroaching upon us. But then, just as hopelessness threatened to consume me, a thought crossed my mind. Name. My own childhood friend Hood disappeared into the corporate world, who now held power beyond imagination. Jonathan. I hadn't spoken to him in years, not since the job he landed had changed him. But perhaps, just perhaps, He could help. Lucas, I whispered urgently, if we can just make it to the back door, we can find him. He used to care about us. He could help us. Oh, you think he'll be like they are? Lucas asked, his small voice quaking with concern. I bit my lip, resisting the urge to lie. He'll be with you every step of the way. We can trust him. As we crouched in the fort-like space, I felt the weight of our fears swirling around us like an unending storm cloud. Stay quiet, I reminded him, my voice a low murmur, and hold on tight. The harsh sounds of footsteps became an ominous rhythm, creaking floorboards a screaming warning as they advanced through the house. They were getting closer. My breath quickened, desperation replacing the fading pulses of hope I had clung to for hours. A crash resounded through the house, a door splintering as it surrendered to those searching for us. The thumping of my heart drowned out everything else, but through the chaos, a small flicker from Lucas's stuffed rabbit caught my eye, a small token of his comfort that had been nestled in one of our heavy blankets. Can you hold this tight? I asked, handing it to him. If you get scared, just hug it tight, okay? He nodded, clutching the toy closer to his chest, the calming touch reminding him of the countless moments of joy baked into his heart. Mom, I can hear them, he cried softly, his voice trembling. I know, love, I replied, forcing strength back into my voice. But we're going to get through this together. I promise. Just as we were about to make a break for the back door, a heavy pounding erupted at the front of the house, sending shards of fear slicing through me once more. The world outside felt like a crushing weight, each thump amplifying our vulnerability. Then, it happened, an unexpected sound, the squawking of a nearby crow, its flurry of wings puncturing the silence like a beacon of hope. Lucas, let's move, I urged, gently pulling him toward the edge of the dresser's cover. But as we shifted, the floorboard creaked ominously beneath us, and the door to the room swung open. Standing there, silhouetted against the dim light, was a figure I never expected, a man in a sleek black suit with a familiar face, too mature for the boy I once knew. Jonathan, I barely managed to utter, my voice catching as shock fluttered in my throat. Uncertainty rose like bile, rippling through every fiber of my being, but there was no time to question. His eyes locked onto ours, a wild pleading stirring within him. You need to come with me. Now. Panic and confusion battled in my mind as the weight of the moment froze me in place. I hesitated, caught between the memories of our cherished childhood and the terrifying uncertainty of whether I could trust him now. Mom, please. Lucas tugged my arm, his voice a fragile echo in the chaos. Then, I understood I had made a promise to protect him, and in that very second, the weight of our lives and choices felt like an untangling thread, threatening to unravel entirely. Would I follow Jonathan into whatever nightmare awaited us, or would I risk all and face the forces outside, uncertain of Lucas' safety? Time hung suspended, alive with possibility, yet burdened with fear, as I stood frozen at the precipice of decision, grappling with a revelation that could change everything. It's funny how we often believe we have so much control over our lives until a moment arrives that hurls us into chaos. Inside that little room, my life cracked open like a fragile egg, vulnerable, raw, and full of unfinished potential. Jonathan stood before us, the embodiment of a choice I never wanted to make. Memories of laughter shared, of innocence, flooded over me. Lucas, I said firmly, my eyes darting back to him. Hold on to the rabbit tightly, and trust me. He nodded, lack of certainty etched on his little face. Yet the bond we shared lit a flame of hope within me own that grounded us in the uncharted territory where fear and love collided. Jonathan, how did you find us? I asked, my voice steady, but my heart rattled wildly inside my chest. In no time. They're looking for you. I was hoping to catch you before it escalated further. I owe you both for everything. The moment I caught wind of those predators targeting children, I've seen how they operate. It's sinister. Please, let's move. There's no time to waste. His expression was frantic yet determined. I caught a glimpse of the boy I once knew beneath the surface of the man he had become. This man had adopted a world that twisted values into something ugly, but perhaps, just perhaps, there was still some of the old Jonathan left in there. We can't go out the front. They'll see us, I whispered urgently. We have to find another way. What do you know? As he opened his mouth to speak, A deafening crash echoed through the house. Panic jolted through me, the realization slicing me like a blade. The men were too close. Cutting through the darkness was a sense of purpose, an ancestral instinct. I drew Lucas close, and in that instant of chaos, a thought crystallized in eerie familiarity with the agony of being hunted and the need for survival. "Let's go," I urged, gripping Lucas' small palm tightly. Weaving through shadows, Jonathan led the way, his presence both a beacon and an enigma. He gripped the doorknob, his back to me while he leaned in to peek outside. "One of the routes to the backyard has been compromised. Stay right behind me." Together, we moved quickly, cloaked in the same night sky that had once witnessed our innocence. I stole quick glances over my shoulder, feeling the thud of trepidation as the memories of cookies and laughter spun around us like ghosts. Suddenly, Jonathan stumbled upon a hidden door at the end of the hallway, concealed perfectly beneath a tapestry. "In here, quickly," he exclaimed, urging Lucas and me through the narrow gap. I glanced back at my son, his small features determined but filled with uncertainty. He breathed quietly, clutching the stuffed rabbit like his entire world depended on it. "I'm right here, love," I whispered before we plunged into darkness. Once inside, we found ourselves engulfed in silence, Jonathan's flashlight flickering against the damp walls. The air felt stale, weighted under a blanket of fear. "This tunnel's to the backside of the school," Jonathan explained, his voice tinged with urgency. "It will lead us to safety. We have to move now. Lead the way," I urged, keeping Lucas close by my side. His little heart pounded through the fabric between us, echoing dread and courage in tandem. As we made our way through the cloistered darkness, I felt a higher power, a sense of connection anchoring me to Lucas. The fears of outside forces dissipated in the face of my fierce love. Silence enveloped us as we navigated the tight passage, ducking under low beams, navigating jagged edges. "This is what they want, to tear families apart," I said, resolving to breathe life back into my voice. "We can't let them win." Laughter, sweetness, and camaraderie were not commodities to be bartered. They were treasures. Finally, the tunnel opened into a narrow passageway graced by faint light seeping through cracks where bricks had worn away. The exit loomed like hope amid despair. As we approached, my heart swelled. Freedom was so close, yet lurking shadows remained. "Well done," Jonathan whispered as we stepped cautiously into the fading light of dusk. Even the twilight felt charged with potential. Everything tingled with possibilities yet to unfold. "Mom, I'm scared," Lucas said, his voice a fragile thread amid the chaos. Lifting him into my arms, I felt his small heartbeat against my chest, a reminder that even the heaviest burdens could be shared, two souls navigating uncharted waters together. "Me too, honey, but we'll get through this. I promise you," I reassured him, brushing my fingers gently over his hair. "Can we have cookies tomorrow?" he asked, a hint of hope laced in his voice. My heart trembled at his innocence beneath the heavy storm cloud looming above. "We can have cookies every day, if you want." As we emerged through the passage, I felt the sun dip below the horizon, a silent promise of a new dawn, one that came bearing a resilience to defy the darkness around us. It was a bittersweet allure. Jonathan spun to face us. "We need to go. They'll be on our trail now." We dashed ahead, light breaking through the fading day as I held Lucas tight, our laughter rising from the depths of despair like a lifeline. Suddenly, sirens wailed close by, a sound that echoed hope and threat simultaneously. As we raced toward safety, I felt Jonathan's presence beside us, each moment pulling us further from the jaws of danger, leading us right into the untamed possibilities awaiting us. With one final glimmer of assurance, I squeezed Lucas' fingers tighter, his innocence gleaming brighter than the stars above. "We'll make cookies for everyone, even for those shadows. They'll just have to learn the sweetness of kindness." And as I said each word, rooted deep in conviction, the path stretched ahead, untrodden but filled with promise. Finally, in that moment of clarity, I realized it was time to break free of the games set in motion, the webs they spun. Whatever power they held would fade against the force of love, laughter, and joyous cookies. United, we emerged into the light. We were more than survivors. We were warriors in a world that thought it could extinguish our flame, but had only forged a bond brighter and more beautiful than any darkness surrounding us. Together, we would rise, and nothing would ever take that away again. And so, we stepped onto the wide-open road, a world alive with colors and the warm scent of possibility. As my heart soared with hope, I knew this sweet adventure would carry us forward, and with each step, we declared to the universe with unwavering strength, we will not hide anymore.